Middle week one of
Hey, babes.
my wish for everybody, John, whether you're out there watching this on YouTube live, whether you're watching this on YouTube not live, hit that thumbs up button. Whether you're listening to this podcast, wherever it is you listen to your podcast, whether you're catching it some other way, you VPN'd from some other nation and you're watching this illegal Reddit stream, however you're watching it, may you be the Derrick Henry of life, John, and not the guys assigned to sit on their hands and knees as Derrick Henry uses you for I don't even know what. Stiff arm practice.
That's a pretty good drill. Just his natural size. I went to a practice actually there for Fry's bachelor party 3 or 4 years ago. Went to Nashville, made it a week, and I know John Robinson, so I went there to see him, and I went to a practice, and I remember Dion Lewis was on the team. I think I took a picture and tweeted out. Dion Lewis was standing next to Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I remember that.
He is bigger than you think in person. He's he's huge. He's massive.
But
I think those are just normal people trying to tackle him. That's where you hit him, in the thighs.
Are those members of the 53-man roster? Because if those are members of the 53-man roster, hey, Coach needs you over here. Henderson, Billingsley, and Smith. Let me get you guys over here. We got to do a little something different today. I need you guys to get on all fours over here, and Derrick Henry's going to just jog by and pat you on the head.
Yeah, I don't think it's Julio or A.J. Brown, but it's possible. Some 53 guys. Maybe you just go, Vrabes, I'm gonna need 3 practice squatters for my original individual drills, please.
This is the equivalent of just having to go get the coffee order for the office right there.
I would imagine we don't get that many clips of 53-man practices, stuff like that. I think you would be shocked how many pretty laughable drills go on for players. What are you doing? Football practice, they are not like the practices we go to training camp where it's pretty serious. I don't think it quite looks like that once the season starts. I think it's a lot of that stuff. You get iron sharpens iron, guy.
That's
pretty good. That's pretty good.
For those of you only listening, just Buck Reesing, it looks like, tweeted it out. Just type in Derrick Henry or go to the YouTube and watch the first video. So,
do you like him from a fantasy standpoint this week against the Cardinals?
Yeah, John. You know what I say about Derrick Henry this week? Give him his flowers.
Yeah. No cap.
Give him his flowers. No cap.
You want to stay on the reservation.
Paul on YouTube says any person who's ever played sports has been embarrassed. Professional athletes are no exception.
I remember our senior year in high school, we played Vacaville, and they had 2 guys. One was named Kyle Williams, I think his first name was.
Williams was definitely the last name.
Yeah, that might not have been his first name. Something Williams. He went to USC, played fullback. In the heyday, we graduated high school in the spring of 03, so that would have been the fall of 02. So Thomas Williams. Yeah. That was actually a little before the heyday then, huh? That was probably second year of Pete, but Pete was recruiting. He was going after the big fish. But they had a defensive end named Kyle DeVan, who was the starting guard for Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl. And he went to Oregon State and had a really good NFL career. I think he's coaching the Pac-12. Maybe he was someone's offensive line coach. So he's probably not there anymore. I'm not sure where he is now. But I just remember him. We ran the 28 sweep. And in the 28 sweep, the right guard, the play, you kick out the defensive end and your running back hits that hole, right? Well, as you're doing your steps to, pull and knock out hit him on the hip and drive him, Kyle DeVan's, and there's no film study. You just knew they had big players, and this guy was fucking huge. As I put my pads down, I remember him grabbing me and tossing me, and this was like the second play of the game. The 28 sweep did not work. As Thomas Williams,
did you go back to it?
Is destroying people. I think we started running the other way. Wherever he was, we tried to run away from Thomas and definitely away from DeVan. If you have 2 Pac-10 players back then against Davis High. Like we didn't have one Division I athlete. We had Hawkins, but I mean, what are we doing here?
Yeah, if that was our senior year, Mike Brown was gone.
Yeah, we had Yaxon and Finazzo played at baseball at Chico State, but I got tossed like a rag doll.
So it works.
I remember Napa High School. I'm not a big live in the past guy, but just vividly remember
Napa
going down right guard. They might not have been called Napa High School.
You think
but they had a high school
like a
Nevada,
like Nevada Union, those guys?
No, I'm thinking senior year we went that way, because we played Vallejo. We were in the Monticello Empire League, so it included Benicia, Vallejo, and Napa. And the Napa guys, unlike Devan and Thomas, who were both of them, I think, played in the NFL. Obviously, Devan did. They had a bunch of guys that looked like us, but they were strong and they were powerful at the line of scrimmage. A lot of 4-point stances, firing off the ball. Couldn't block those guys either. I mean, I couldn't block anybody, but that was a tough matchup for Davis High, that Napa team.
Steve says vintage high school, maybe?
Yeah, but I think it was vintage high school. They had a defensive line that was just 5'10", 200-pound guys that were explosive. Well-run program.
A bunch of what was his name from the Colts? Robert Mathis's. No, he wasn't 5'10", but relative to.
Yeah, white richer kid version of Napa for sure. They were good, You experienced that in Fresno. They had a lot of teams with a lot of just well coached, tough guys.
Yeah, not Division I athletes, but guys who this meant a lot to them. Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's where Josh Allen cut his teeth, John.
I drove through Firebaugh this weekend.
Firebaugh.
It was you've driven through Firebaugh, I'm sure, right?
Oh yeah, I've been to Firebaugh. I haven't just driven through Firebaugh. I've been to Firebaugh.
It's pretty insane driving through.
Kingsburg, baby, that's a place to be. I'll tell you that.
That Firebaugh produced not an NFL quarterback, but like a guy who just made $150 million guaranteed. I had that thought when I was driving through. I'm like, this is nuts. 9,100 people is what the sign said.
One of them was Josh Allen.
Yeah. All he ever wanted to do was play for the Dogs.
Didn't get that chance.
Yeah, Kaepernick, him, the Dogs.
It's a shame. Some people don't get to accomplish their dreams, John. And for Josh Allen, it'll just never happen.
Feel bad for him.
Yeah, he'll be rooting for Cal Poly this week, I guess, in the big Fresno State Cal Poly game, which I have not seen a television network on that one yet.
Yeah, we just we don't get much television love in San Luis Obispo.
Is that a home game? I don't think it's being played at.
I don't think we do home and home.
Mike Krukow Stadium.
No, it's the guy who signs Herbert checks. They call it Spanos Stadium. Yeah, Spanos clearly needed a write-off when I was in college and gave him probably like $75,000. But I swear to God, I was at the game that they announced it. He acted like it was $75 million the way he walked.
Wait a second. So Spanos has spent more money on Cal Poly Stadium than his own stadium.
Yeah.
I mean, in 76 years, his $1 a year rent he will have spent. No, in 76,000 years, he will have spent as much as he spent on Cal Poly.
Now, in all seriousness, it might have been like $500,000. It was a pretty big renovation, but it was cool. I mean, it made the place look a lot because before it probably looked like Clovis East or something. I mean, it was a joke. Like Fresno State would never, unless you paid them like $5 million, would never play there.
Yeah,
ever. Yeah. Do teams ever a non-Power 5 but Division I team has never gone to an FCS team, right?
I mean, I've never heard of it. Maybe maybe there's like some, there's a fire somewhere or there's a flood, you get displaced and you play that game, but I've never heard of that. No,
that'd be pretty sweet though. It'd probably sell out.
I mean, maybe we're getting closer, John. FCS, we keep talking about the death of lower level football, but like 6 FCS teams won 6 or 7 won this weekend. So
yeah, my buddy Anthony Patch, who works for the Eagles, who got me hired with the Eagles, who lives in Spokane, Washington. So he's just a West Coast guy. Forwarded me, I think I forwarded you the Big Skies tweet that it was just like one of their greatest, days in conference history. They had three programs beat Division I programs. Like I don't care. That's a
UC Davis, Eastern Washington, and Montana. Eastern Washington beat Colorado State.
UC Davis beat Tulsa and Montana beat Washington. I'd also say that's not like you just beat New Mexico State 3 times, right? I mean, that's actually New Mexico State might even be D1AA now.
No. Are they independent?
Yeah, they're not in the WAC. Or I mean, the WAC doesn't exist. The Mountain West.
You know. John, this show is brought to you, sponsored by our friends at Tito's Handmade Vodka. You guys delivered this weekend, sending us and since the weekend, since it's a Tito's Tuesday, you guys delivered, sending us a bunch of pictures of your Tito's, your beverages. I'll tell you, you mentioned this over the weekend. Some of you going bold with Tito's and like a hard seltzer beverage as like a mixer. I think that's what was going on with some of you. But keep sending us those pictures. We appreciate it. And we definitely appreciate all the support that you're giving us and Tito's.
I learned my lesson this week because it is it tastes very good. The Truly Fruit Punch with Tito's. I was also drinking with a guy who might weigh like 240 pounds. Middle cup roves between about 85 to 95. So he's got me by a decent amount. You got to be careful with that one. If you can handle it, do it. But I'm really
responsibly.
Save it responsibly. I'm a Tito soda guy. Tito, we do transfusions here on this show. We do it all. But it mainly just starts with Tito's, the number one vodka in America that was started once upon a time, not that long ago, by a man with a vision that not many people saw except Tito, because that's his name, Tito. He maxed out 19 credit cards. He laid it all on the line, and he just worked, and he worked. And then finally the dam broke when he won the, I think, was it the wine and food and wine San Francisco?
It's just the spirits competition. He was double gold, I think.
Yeah, dominated.
They don't even give that in the Olympics.
And then this guy named Trader Joe, they heard about him, and they reached out, and then the rest is history. And now they're the number one spirit in America, number one vodka in America. They sponsor this show and also the PGA Tour. So no big deal. Tito's for the win.
John, don't forget about this week. Make yourself a Tito's kickoff. Start the season off with a classic. Just mix some orange juice and soda water with a splash of Tito's. Keep your cocktail game fresh and easy. That's a little Tito's, right? A couple ounces of OJ, 2 ounces of soda water, maybe a little slice of orange, and there you go. That's the way you roll.
You know the best part about soda water you do a mixture is it's just very versatile, right? You put the soda water with the alcohol, and then you can just, if you want to add OJ, you want to add cranberry, you want to add a little lemonade, like it's just it's flavor. It's I don't know the right word for it, but it's like Taysom Hill or a use check. It can just be used for a lot of different things when you are taking down alcoholic beverages with Tito's.
Shout out to our guy Jeff Schwartz in the chat who said he loves Montana, his new favorite FCS team. What's up, Schwartz?
Well, he hates Washington.
He's a duck.
I didn't realize till I followed him that closely that Washington, I guess it makes sense, that Washington and Oregon hate each other that much.
It really sucks if you're Oregon State and Washington State were like your biggest rival. Actually, you're their second biggest rival because their rivalry is with each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It'd be like being married and then being divorced and then getting remarried, and like the two previous partners talk more, like their conversations are more relevant than the two new couples, if that makes sense.
Do you think if you ask, I know he played for the team, so it's it's clearly what they hammered Bellotti right in the team meeting. If you just ask the average Oregon or Washington alumni, just normal student, who their number one rival is in sports, do you think most of them would say Washington State and Oregon State, or they would say Oregon or in Washington?
They would say that, yeah. I think Oregon views its biggest rival as Washington, and Washington views its biggest rival as Oregon. Definitely for football.
Yeah. Okay. So it's USC, UCLA.
What is?
Cal Stanford. I'm just saying that.
Yeah.
For those people.
Yep.
I didn't quite realize that.
Yeah, it's.
I have now. Over
I
the
do
years,
think,
but
particularly, it feels like losing the Apple Cup for UW is worse. I don't know. Schwartz could respond to this. Than it is for Oregon. It feels like that the Apple Cup is a bigger deal than Oregon State in terms of like how much those people talk about it. Maybe that's a reflection of Washington State fans. I'm not sure, but
yeah, the Apple Cup, and I guess we gotta RIP the Civil War because it's what's it called now? Just the game. Those two names were pretty sweet. Those two names were pretty sweet, right? Yeah. There's no name for UCLA USC. It's just a sweet game.
The highway, something about a highway, which is always the worst name for anything. Is I bring up a highway, the Highway 1 rivalry, that type of thing.
What's Stanford Cal?
The big game, or no, big game, not the word just big game. I learned that one.
Because what's Auburn, Alabama is the Iron Bowl.
Iron
right?
Bowl. Yep.
That's a pretty solid name.
It's a very good one. And then you have like the battle for whatever. Some of them are named off whatever the trophy is, right?
What was Hawaii Fresno State?
The Golden Screwdriver. It still is.
Yeah.
I was once on College Game Day talking about it. It was literally a joke, and people took it seriously. And so they
San
made
Jose State, Fresno State have a rivalry?
Yeah, the battle for Los Banos, I think.
Who gets to claim Fireball?
Yeah, who gets to claim Fireball? I don't know how that one works.
Silicon Valley just versus the Valley.
Yeah, exactly.
Boots versus loafers. Trucks
I like
versus
that.
Teslas.
Silicon Valley versus the Valley. That's a good one.
Yeah, just trucks versus Teslas or something like that.
Yeah.
I could do trucks versus Teslas.
Petrol versus SunPower.
Yeah.
Podcast also brought to you, John, by MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM1, where you can use the promo code HAM1, and MyBookie will match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $1,000. You can also decline the bonus if you bet the full amount. You do have to, if you accept the bonus, you have to bet the full amount before you withdraw funds. But either way, use HAM1. Let them know we sent you. Just before this podcast, you and I were kind of finalizing our plan for our lock of the week this season, and we've decided, based on an accident that we stumbled into on Sunday when you and I started debating what was a worse game for this week one, the Texans-Jags game or the Giants-Broncos game. I say Texans-Jags is more watchable. You say Broncos-Giants. We could all agree it's lose-lose if you're watching any of those games. That maybe we should include the worst game of the week in our bets of the week. So would you like to reveal what our plan is for the season starting this week?
You don't put Eagles-Falcons in that group, do you?
I mean, if we really wanted to make a list, like they'd be in the conversation.
Yeah, so we'll do lock of the week, and I think do the dud of the week. Just probably the easiest way to do it. So we will gamble.
I was calling
Last
it the
year,
hostage game, like the game that you wouldn't watch even if you were a hostage, and this was the only game they gave you access to. But I think dud of the week is more easy to understand what it is.
Yeah, we'll just go lock of the week, which is just our favorite bet of the week. And I think as the last time we talked, and really just looking at the slate, which I've looked at nonstop from a gambling perspective, it does feel the only true playoff team versus a team that you feel is going to draft really high is Niners, Lions. You know, maybe you could get to Bears, Rams, but it's a little early to think that. Like, I know the Lions are going to be really bad. That's kind of where I stand on lock of the week. And what we'll do is last year we'll just put $300 on the big game, the game that we feel strongly, and then we'll just throw $100 on the dud of the week, just to because that will, if I got $100, and honestly, guy, I'm thinking Texans plus 2.5, because I will look
Texans
at the
money
dud,
line?
Well, I will look at the dud of the week extremely unemotionally, like just like what would, if I'm just a pure gambler, it's on the road. You know, it's Urban. Now,
the Texans are hosting. Tyrod Taylor's a professional NFL quarterback.
Yeah. He is.
I mean, you know, the beauty of the dud of the week is that each time we do that pick, it's the argument that we have to make for which team we think we should go with is going to be so weak.
Well, if you were, because I would bet if we did the Broncos Giants, I would feel pretty comfortable doing the Broncos, but it is in New York, 10 a.m. kickoff. I feel better. It's not, I don't view the Eagles, Falcons as a dud of the week, even though those are probably two non-playoff teams, because I will feel very confident betting on the Eagles in that game. But I do feel the Texans and the Jags deserve that $100. I would say if you ask the average fan, because we talked about from a fantasy perspective, that game probably has the least amount of fantasy players, right? I mean, I can't imagine there's a human being who feels good about his fantasy team that goes, I got a Texan. He's going to play a major role in my squad, right? That is not the case.
No. You know what's crazy?
Maybe the Jags. They have a running back.
Looking at the Texans roster for a team that should be pretty bad, their lack of interesting rookies. They're like Nico Collins.
They didn't have any picks.
Nico Collins in the third round. Davis Mills in the third round. Garrett Wallow, fifth round linebacker. Let's just Texans running backs. Here's the guys they got on their roster: Mark Ingram, Phillip Lindsay, David Johnson, Rex Burkhead.
So basically, every guy has either made a Pro Bowl or played in the Super Bowl in that group. Those are pretty famous running backs, wouldn't you say? Mm-hmm. In just NFL vernacular. Mm-hmm. I mean, all four guys have either had great fantasy years, played on great teams, had balls thrown to them by Tom Brady. That is not it's a random group, but it is a pretty famous group. That has to be their most famous group of players in a unit on their team.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
who's their backup quarterback?
Well, is it not blank space anymore? I mean, it's Mills. It's not Deshaun.
Well, but when Caserio gave out their depth chart, it's like, well, who's going to be your backup quarterback on game day? Like, I get you put him at third, so it's just going to be Davis Mills. And Watson. Is Watson going to be at the game on the sideline, or do they tell him to stay home?
I mean, doesn't feel like it, does it? Pretty weird.
You think they tell him to stay home? You think he's going to show up like this week to practice?
How can he be on the sidelines healthy and not play, but also not be banned?
I had someone DM me.
What if he's in the stands, bought a ticket?
Asking me if they thought it was crazy if he kind of forces their hand to try to play, and I was like, I think he's in a tough spot on that one. Because what if his competitive juices get going? Well, yeah, wouldn't they? What do you think it was like sitting at 4 weeks of training camp? You think he's like, this sucks?
Oh, yeah, John. Running back is their best. Anyway,
you want to take them? You think they can get us $100?
Yeah, but remember, you said it on the last podcast, and you said it to me the other day. The problem here is we got to wait till the last minute. Now, on the dud of the week, you might not have to, but we probably should. Just wait until it's as late as possible.
Place a bet on Sunday morning.
Just in case anything, I remember, speaking of Schwartz, I was listening to his podcast a while back, and he did a thing about, there was some prop bet about who will be the Patriots week 1 starter. And he was like, well, in what scenario is it not Cam Newton? And it's like, well, here we are, right? And even before Cam got cut, what if COVID just takes him out? That's more what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah. So remember Uncle Joey would say, cut it out. He got cut. He's gone.
Yeah. What was it? It was scissors. Then what was it?
I thought it was cut it out
or
something.
Thumb out. MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM1. So tune in Thursday. I guess we'll make the pick on the show Thursday every week. And then barring, we reserve the right to change the pick Sunday morning. But our goal should be to decide on Thursday, barring some last-minute change.
I like where your mind's at.
That'll be fun. Now, you can fade Ham. You can ride with Ham. That's up to you.
We're going to stay in our lane. We're not going to get outrageous, and I'm probably to blame for that last year.
Week. Well, no, last week we just got bored always picking the Jets.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I might not, venture far away from the Lions. They might be the squad, or the Texans.
Yeah, you're saying yeah, you're right.
Could they combine to win 3 games total? Those 3 teams or those 2 teams?
I mean, if they try hard and work together.
Yeah. It's teamwork.
All right, John, let's get to it. Oh, real quick, we'll tell you about DraftKings later. Get in our DraftKings game. It's linked in. If you're listening to the podcast, it's linked in the bio. If you're watching the YouTube, linked in the bio. We got 200 spots in this week's DraftKings game, so we'll tell you more about that later. As we record this on Tuesday afternoon, we await the status of Trey Lance, who did actually have the little splint on, hand on the shoulder of Deebo Samuel. Didn't throw in the period that Meaty was able to watch on Monday. I saw a good point.
You're saying he had the splint in on Deebo's picture with the sweet coat?
Yeah. I went back and looked.
Gotcha.
So there was that. And then, more importantly, he didn't throw in practice on Monday. Could he still be available for the game? Absolutely he could. But I got to give credit to David Lombardi, who I saw tweet, you're not paying Jimmy Garoppolo $24 million to then rush Trey Lance back before you're really ready to put him on the football field. I thought that was a good way of looking at it, even though I'd love to see Trey Lance on the football field.
Jimmy, we pivoted quick from a conversation I think you, me, Mayoko had on the sideline probably week 1 of training camp when Trey Lance looked spectacular to be like, is Jimmy's money in some trouble? To Jimmy's just in cruise control right now. And he was going to probably get the $25 million whether Trey hurt his hand or not. To me, that forced the issue. I know a big story on Monday was after their practice, they released a statement, the 49ers did. Maybe it was a text message to all the media people that said, the starting quarterback in the National Football League has to talk twice a week. He has to talk on Mondays, and he has to talk after the game. It's just part of the built-in media schedule for the league, which is smart. You want your star players mandated to talk. There's no They do not allow Kevin Durant hiding. That's not the business of the league. And it's just the quarterbacks just do it. So when they tell you that Jimmy Garoppolo was talking on Wednesday, a big thing I saw on my Twitter timeline from people that just like, well, that means Jimmy Garoppolo's starting, right? It kind of solidifies that that's who talks. Like I would imagine Andy Dalton for the Bears, right, talks tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's just part of the, Tom Brady. You go around the league, you can name 32 of them, right? Mac Jones will talk tomorrow. Honestly, it doesn't feel like I've seen any Mac Jones clips of him talking. I'm actually probably most interested. I kind of want to see him talk tomorrow. Just see some of the quotes.
I did see there was a quote. Somebody asked him if he was surprised that he won the starting job, and he said no.
He's teaching Cam the playbook. So to me, the biggest question mark is now that we know Jimmy Garoppolo is the starting quarterback. And I'd say it felt like we knew that once Trey had the splint on his hand. Now the number one question is is Trey Lance going to dress on Sunday? Because I would say that's in question right now.
Yeah.
I'll be fascinated to see tomorrow. Is he limited in practice? Because if he can't throw tomorrow, I would say more than likely he's not going to play in the game. And then they're going to have to cut someone come Saturday and move what's his name up.
Nate Sudfeld. Yeah, I mean, if he can't throw, you can't have him as your backup. Jimmy Garoppolo's been hurt before. Now the question is, does Kyle Shanahan have any desire, even if Trey can't throw, to pretend that he can and give him a few plays running the football?
I would say that to me is borderline stupidity at this. That's kind of crazy.
I agree.
You're a guy in a splint. You're running around and getting hit by. The first time an NFL player can play the week one when the violence is really high, right?
Also,
I don't even care if you
forget about his health, which is the primary concern here, because long term you're really invested. But just on the most basic level, he might fumble.
Even before to me that I just view it like I'd have to look. I haven't even looked at the Lions depth chart. They're just that irrelevant. I don't care who they're rolling out. Those guys would be coming for his hand, right?
Dan Campbell, you think Dan Campbell's a big kill the head and the body will die guy?
I could say that he would probably lead some of those type conversations in some team meetings. Maybe not with this squad. It's if you're going to do in fairness to Greg Williams, he was giving that speech going into a playoff game, right?
Right.
I think that was the wild card game. That was, I understand it. I think it's harder when you're viewed as a 3. Your over under is 4.5.
Yeah.
Not that Dan Campbell cares about the over.
No, I think you're right. I think the odds at this point are good that we don't see him, right? How often can a quarterback if he's your starting quarterback and you're gutting through it, right? If Trey Lance were the starting quarterback of this team, then I think there's a chance that he might still play, because it might be, well, can he throw? Yeah, he can throw. There's some pain tolerance, but he's not going to make the finger any worse by
You're
playing.
saying if Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't on the squad, they didn't have start,
Yeah, I'm
saying if this was next year.
I'm saying just make it QB1, a guy who's clearly QB1. I don't know what the odds that guy plays this game is, but I think there's there's a greater likelihood that he would play if he were just the starting quarterback and it was Trey Lance number 1, Nate Sudfeld your backup.
I don't know enough about his if he can't grip the ball, he can't grip the ball, right? I mean, if there's pain on snaps, you're right. Maybe if it was a pinch, a wild card game, and he could only take the ball but I think this would be something if it was just throwing hand, it's just throwing finger, right? I mean, that's a pretty big deal.
It is. I just what I'm saying is if it's just a pain tolerance issue, which is a major fact, pain, that's a thing.
I think it's fair. I think it's fair to say at this point in time, they probably avoided disaster. He could have shattered the finger. Clearly it's good enough where he can still be at practice. To me, he could have a full on. It could be bad.
Well, you don't
remember Drew Brees a couple years ago?
How much time did he miss?
6 games or something. 5 games. Remember, stayed in L.A. and rehabbed his thumb, and then Teddy played all those games, and then he came back. It was a question remember the question was with Drew would it end the season? And he was dead set on coming back.
It was not close to 100%, right?
Yeah. So I would. Yeah. This is not.
As we talk about it, I don't expect to see Trey Lance at this point.
I don't either. I think they really should be pretty glad that he didn't really break his finger, where it would have required a month in a cast or something. Because you see that a lot when guys shatter a finger. Sometimes you just got to put a cast. Maybe that's 2 or 3 weeks, maybe not 4 or 5, but still, he's got a splint on and he's able to go to practice. Right? A lot of times that guy disappears for a while because he can't do anything unless you're a defensive lineman. There's nothing like the defensive lineman when he has a club.
until he's back throwing, I just can't assume he's back against the Eagles either. Right? We're talking about the experts say it should be a week. Fast healers, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Until he's throwing consistently. And, like, the first day he throws is not necessarily the telltale because he's got to throw that day and feel okay throwing and be accurate throwing. Because you're right. It's not just about people going at his hand. I don't want him running out there hurt, throws a pick because he can't be accurate, and now we're in a bad situation too, right? He's got to
tackle.
Oh, yeah. How about that? You throw an interception, and now people are coming after you.
To me, if you're putting the guy in pads, like if he's dressing as your backup, I said this last year about Tua when they're like, he's not quite ready yet. Well, he's your backup, so you're one rolled ankle away from him being in, so he has to be prepared to do everything, and he was your backup the whole time. If you're going to dress him on game day, you have to be prepared. After one snap, Jimmy gets KO'd. Can you run 55 plays with this guy?
Right.
Can you run an entire game? That, to me, is the only way you ever dress a guy unless it's a wild card, like, a one-and-done situation. But week one?
Well, let's talk about it in the reality of your situation, which is this. If Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt, who gives you a better chance to win? Trey Lance with his finger or Nate Sudfeld?
Well, if Trey Lance can't throw, it's Nate Sudfeld. He can throw.
Right. I mean, that to me, that's the way that's how you end up forcing a guy into a lineup because you go, I don't think I can win with the backup, or the third stringer. And that's where you're lucky that you're playing the Detroit Lions this week.
Yeah. I would say Mullins, but he's on the Browns 53.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Sudfeld right now is not on the 53-man roster. So they would have to cut someone. There's always the guy that you're on their team, but you are the 53rd man. And if you better pray that Trey's finger's okay, because you will get released and you will not get a game check. And Sudfeld will. So if I'm Sudfeld, there's a big difference between $9,500 a week and whatever the full game check is. I mean, it might be like 95 or 60, right? I mean, it's probably 5X. If I'm Sudfeld, like, this might be my chance to get that $60,000 check. It's a pretty big check for a week.
If you're Sudfeld, it's, knowing Jimmy Garoppolo's history too, and knowing the way the Niners intend to use Trey Lance, you're in a pretty good spot. But, I expect to see Nate Sudfeld on the sideline with a helmet on this week, now that we talk about it.
Do you know who underrated has, like, the best job in the NFL right now?
Player?
Is Foles. Foles, yeah, player. Foles is the third-string quarterback. He makes like $10 million, and he is never going to play a snap.
But he doesn't want to be the third-string quarterback. He wants to play.
Yeah, but he's playing for nobody, and he's getting all this money, and he doesn't ever. He is three. Like, there has to be multiple injuries for him ever to get on the field. Now, I'm with you. I understand he wants to play, but I'm just saying, like, he doesn't have to do anything.
I know, but he wants to play.
But he would not play for anybody.
I understand, but I don't know I don't think, based on that press conference I watched, I don't think he views it as the best job in the NFL.
Yeah, he does. I'm saying we would all take it. $9 million job or $8 million or whatever much he's making, which is in the millions, where he doesn't have to do dick.
Right. But there's a lot of jobs you would take for $9 million that you have to do dick, and you still would be like, it's worth doing.
True, but if I'm a quarterback and I know for a fact I never even have to put pads on Sunday, so I'm never in the firing line, and all I got to do is make some passes to the scout team. Yeah.
Is that if you're not active on game day, or at least they tell you you're not.
No golf clubs on the plane.
But what's the home game? Sunday morning round of golf?
Yeah, if you live at the country club, they would never know, especially if it's a night game.
But what if they call you like, hey man, Andy Dalton just broke his foot in a sauna. You're active today. Get here.
Then,
on my way, coach. Was just on my way. No, was just leaving. Just on my way.
I retire.
Yeah, when Foles be like, well, actually, since you guys are in a pinch, how about we rework that contract, huh? Sign a little extension. So Mike Sando wrote a piece. We did a video the other day. We were doing the show, and Josh Norman got signed. Sando in The Athletic, who does a lot of these discussion, wrote a lot of these articles where he talks to anonymous NFL sources. He did one where he did the primary concern for every team. The biggest worry for the Niners, he wrote, was a cornerback position that was a liability with Richard Sherman on the team remains a liability without him. Anonymous NFL source, obviously quarterback is a concern, what happens there, but they need a defensive presence on the back end. Their pass rush is so good. If they're not able to stay healthy on the defensive line, that secondary is going to get exposed. Their corner situation sucked last year. Teams really focused on them. Are they better? Maybe they make a move for Stephon Gilmore at some point. I think they need someone. Now, I will say, because we've talked about cornerback quite a bit, it's been my primary concern for the 49ers for several months. You've said a few times, hey, if your pass rush is good, you can survive. So I was like, well, how many teams don't have, a solidified corner position? And the number's probably bigger than 7. But 6 other teams, in addition to the 49ers, it was their primary concern, according to Sando's article, was cornerback. And 2 of those teams are the Cardinals and the Rams. So think about
Seahawks.
this. Seahawks, not the Rams. If you're the Rams, if you're Stafford, and if you're McVay, you got the other 3 teams in your division, their weakest links is their cornerbacks. Pretty good position to be in. But if you're the Niners, you go, okay, we're not the only ones in this boat in our division.
But the Niners made the Super Bowl. Now, Richard was really good that year. He was an all-pro, but they didn't really throw at him. They just threw relentlessly at the other guy, right? I mean, they just threw relentlessly at whoever was the other corner.
And it was it was rotating. Sometimes in the Super Bowl, it was changing.
Yeah. So my philosophical belief with this is like most teams don't like. There's no team right now that's like, we're just rolling out Jalen Ramsey and Darrelle Revis. It doesn't exist. Like, are the Rams DBs that really good? I don't know. Like, I mean, they lost a safety to the Browns. Like, to me, their defensive back, like with Jalen Ramsey, they're awesome. But like, are they just locking everyone down? Seattle hasn't been good in the secondary for forever. And they got 2 good safeties. Think about that. They got Diggs and they got Jamal Adams, and it's like their DBs suck. That's how people view it, because they don't cover. So the Cardinals, I actually kind of like the kid from Washington, Murphy. I remember watching him last year make some plays. Yeah, he's solid. But like, is he that great? I don't know. I don't think people view him as like a number 1 corner, but I don't think that most teams have a true number 1 corner. Best, maybe Murphy's like a good number 2. Like, if your pass rush is good and really your front 7 is good, which the Niners is, I don't think it matters. Because it didn't really when they made the Super Bowl. Because the one point of difference for the Niners, though,
spots. Their pass rush was elite.
Elite, yeah. I don't view them viewing this defensive line. I've read this a couple places. Like, it can be really good. Like, it can. Can Bosa play 70 games? Is like, can Law become a legit player? D Ford's on a pitch count. Well, when he comes in, does he look like fucking Trevor Hoffman, or does he get shelled?
Deliver?
Yeah, does Armstead make plays? Do all these other guys that everyone's like, oh, these guys are all sweet. Like, do they actually make a bunch of, like, DJ Jones chasing people? We'll see. But I do think they looked really good in 19 because they came in as the second unit. It's like, it's on like Donkey Kong, right? It's easy to be the second unit when it's like your first unit's Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson. You're like, I just get to kind of mess around and cook. It's another thing where it's like, you kind of got to be a starter.
Your offense is scoring 40 points, running the ball. Teams are just desperate. There's not much clock left, and they're down 3 scores.
Yeah, I do think their defense, 1 point of difference for them last year too, and I think on this team, if your corners can't really cover, and they're pretty hit or miss, and Josh Norman is not some lockdown cover guy. If all of them, and I include the safeties in this, are willing to tackle and hit, your team looks a lot better. And that is a point of difference they've had the last 2 years with their DBs. And losing Richard is a big deal because Richard's the best tackling probably corner of all time. But obviously Jimmy Ward will destroy you. K'Wan Williams loves to tackle. Mosley, excellent tackler. Tart, if he plays, Hufanga, like those guys are all hitters. So to me, you can make up for it as like they were just fantastic tacklers because some guys are gonna get open, but they all tackle. Verrett will tackle. Norman will tackle, even though when I think of Josh Norman, the thing that went viral the last couple of years when he tried to tackle the big guy, on that Henry's used to it on that drill.
Yeah,
He just so at least if you have a bunch of guys that won't tackle and won't cover, then you're just going to be a terrible. Like, I never feel their DBs are that bad because they will, like every other play, hit someone really hard. So that does help.
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to limit yak, right? Your offense loves yak for a reason. It's very valuable. So limiting yak is also very valuable. But tackling is also it's a physical event, and the Niners have a history of defensive backs that don't stay healthy, right?
Well, I do
like that. Would be if I was given the anonymous quote. That would be my anonymous quote. It wouldn't be anonymous. Yeah. I'll say it here, right? We all know it. Like, the number one concern is their health. Are they deep enough if they're not healthy?
Are we going to learn that much about their defensive backfield the first couple weeks? I mean, obviously, there's probably not one human alive that will play anyone Lions fantasy at corner, or I mean, at wide receiver. The Eagles do have two names, right? I mean, Rager was a first-round pick, and Devontae Smith was the Heisman Trophy winner. But, like, who knows? Like, I don't know. They might be sweet. They might not. It might take them a little while. Jalen, I think the next couple weeks after that, it'll get going. Maybe you'll learn a little bit with the Eagles. I just don't know week one if you're going to learn that much about their defensive backfield. If they are getting beat by Goff and the Rams, or I mean, not the Rams, the Lions, if it's a problem week one, they got problems.
Well,
right?
I'll tell you, yeah, they're off. Yeah, well, absolutely. Week one for sure. Week two, their offensive line's probably more of a concern than their secondary against the Eagles, right? Can they protect?
Who's blocking? What guard is blocking Fletcher Cox on that team? Can McGlinchey hang with like Brandon Graham and some of the defensive ends they're going to throw at them? I feel good about Trent.
And an injury.
Can Trent Williams block them all? Because he could, but I mean,
but if
he can only play one position,
I mean, that would be. I saw somebody ask Barrows in a mailbag, like, who's the number one player they couldn't, if you had to pick injury, they couldn't get hurt. But is it Bosa? And he's like, well, Bosa, it's Trent Williams, based on just the level of replacement. It's non-existent. It'd be a rookie.
Well, they lost Bosa last year, and they had a playoff level defense, right? Trent Williams goes out there, they'd be in trouble.
Would you agree that's the number one?
Well, if like week one, if you told me that Jimmy got banged up and Trey's in street clothes, like I would not feel good. If you said that Sudfeld has to play 3 quarters or the Niners a lock, I'd be like,
right.
It could get weird fast. But yeah, big picture. To me, it's just you just gave him $65 million. He's probably pound for pound the best player on your team. Literally, he's the most pounds, I think, because he's the biggest guy. But I mean, he's a
Jason
fucking.
Fred, if you go pound for pound, it just means per
yeah,
pound.
so
how good are you?
I mean, hell, maybe Debo.
Ayuk.
Trent is just. I think when you factor in the money you just gave him, like once you give a guy a lot of money, in my opinion, I don't even think this is everyone's opinion. You're all in on that guy. So whenever you see some of these guys that miss a bunch of time. I think that's why Carl Lawson's like such a kick in the dick for the Jets. It's like they just gave him a bunch of cash. When you give a guy a lot of money, you don't just think the guy's good, but like the way the business of the sport is set up, right? You're just all in on this guy being a sweet player financially. I mean, it's time to go. No different than when I trade multiple picks for these guys. Like I need this guy to be really good. Like I was talking to a buddy. I was asking about Laramie Tunsil. I'm like, how is he? I'm like, I can't pretend I've watched most Texans games. It's like, he's good. I know. You ever seen Caserio talk? He's got like probably 2 friends in the media. He is not. Got the skinny face. And he's just boring. But he's a good player. But is he? He's not Trent Williams. He's not. What Tyron's. He's not elite. At least Jalen Ramsey and Khalil Mack, like when those teams first got him, are like the best at their position. That's not Laramie Tunsil. So they got him a little out of desperation. Because I would look at it like, well, could you trade him? Because he's under contract. Yeah, you might get like a first. So you pay, if you just, let's say 2 firsts and a second are the equivalent of $10 million. Obviously, they're worth more than that. But would you just trade him for just a 1 and just take your loss at like $4 million?
It makes
right?
it easy because it's not your loss if you're Caserio, right?
Yeah, you just need the pick. So
you
next
need a
year
1.
You get a really.
What's more valuable to you, a 1
or him?
Now the problem is who's giving you a 1.
You do need a left tackle.
It might be somebody really good. Yeah, do you to protect who? I mean, you do.
You just need a left. I think if we could rewind time before Harbaugh, let's say we were doing this in 2010, we'd be like, God, they got a bunch of assets. Like, think you could flip Vernon, you could flip Joe Staley. It's like, well, you just need some good players.
Yeah.
You can utilize if you do have good players. Remember when Pete got the job in Seattle and they cut, I think they set a record in like a 12-month span, like cutting, adding, like he just treated it like the meat market, like kind of like baseball guys do. But he didn't have anybody. And then eventually he just acquired guys. Then he had kind of his core group. I do think if you inherit good guys, I tend to want to keep them if contract.
If your team's going to be bad, though, they've got to be leaders, right? They've got to be Joe Staley types.
Yeah, if he's not, then
otherwise, then you're willing to downgrade talent, but those guys don't. Again, not to relitigate this one, but what Harbaugh walked into was pretty incredible. When you look back at how bad they'd been, that roster, I know you know, I mean, everyone knows it. To me, it's fascinating always to look at, like, what that team was and how shocking it was to the league that they were as good as they were. But as it turned out, you looked at that roster, I mean, it was absolutely stacked.
Well, what if I told a team inheriting guys in their prime, Joe Staley, Frank Gore, Vernon Davis, Patrick Willis, young Crabtree. I mean, they had 5 or 6 pieces just to jump, right? Just to start. I mean, that was just to start. They had those guys. Wait, an elite middle linebacker, an elite left tackle, a high-end running back, an elite talent at tight end, a young top 10 wide receiver. You know, it's like, Alex Smith. Now, when I say Alex now, it resonates a lot different than when he inherited it, right?
Yeah. But
still, that's a lot better than, like, ask Robert Saleh what it was like showing up day one when he was around the guys. What they look like. Like, holy shit, we need some help.
I wonder if Alex, when he was doing the thing where he wasn't actually their quarterback, but he was running their offensive drills out at San Jose State, where, by the way, Trey Lance and Jerry Rice filmed a Chipotle commercial.
It's like the go-to. It's just easy.
Did
it's
you
always
see that?
Open. Yeah, well, it's like, where else are you going to go? Levi's
when
probably.
You do that, they like kind of hide where you are. Like this one's like, nope, San Jose State. I was like, that's pretty cool. Like, good for San Jose State.
Yeah.
And Trey Lance got the Chipotle commercial. Good for Chipotle surviving, making the comeback. But
surviving, it feels like they're thriving.
Yeah, thriving. I mean, they really over. I remember you and I went to a Chipotle like in the heat of it all. It was like we walked to the Chipotle in downtown San Francisco, and there was a sign on the door like, we're closed 2 days for training, because they were like, trying to get everything back on track after they'd had a few issues. But I wonder if you had asked Alex, did he feel like he had a roster that was about to be really good that year when he was just leading team workouts, right? Like, did he know?
I feel they thought they were good. If I remember correctly, like when they hired Singletary, they thought they had a good team. That's part of no, they thought they had drafted all these good players with, what's his name, McCloughan, remember? Yeah. And they were right. They did. And then in fairness, this guy takes a lot of heat. Balky did. Harbaugh's first year have an incredible draft. He went Upati, Davis, Bowman, Kaepernick. Or it might have been Alden. I don't know. He had Alden, Kaepernick maybe the next year. Maybe that was
Anthony
the first year.
Davis?
I don't know. He had Davis, Upati, and Bowman, I think, in the draft.
Chris Culliver?
When Harbaugh was hired. And Culliver. Is that what you're looking at?
I'll pull it up right now. So the 11.
What was Harbaugh's first year? It would have been 11. Yeah, it was Harbaugh's first year.
It was Alden, Colin, Culliver, Daniel Kilgore, Bruce Miller.
Oh, so excuse me. So Harbaugh inherited
yes,
Upati, Davis, and Bowman.
10 was Davis, Upati, Bowman.
So you inherited a team that had Staley, Upati, Davis, Bowman, Willis, Vernon Davis, Crabtree, Frank Gore.
Did you say Staley?
Joe Staley as well.
You said Willis.
I mean, what are we talking about?
The secondary, Deshaun Goldson. Sorry.
Yeah, Dante. I think they signed Dante Whitner maybe in 11, because I remember we watched him in Philly. He was sweet. I mean, he was just knocking people out.
And the next year was like, nobody can stop us. We got the magic touch, baby. AJ Jenkins.
You get cocky fast.
Well, you win some, you lose some. But, so I go health. I go overall health. If I had to pick something else, I'd say offensive line, even though corners is at the top of my list. Would you put anything else above corners concerns for the Niners?
No. I mean, quarterback play. I do think I would put that above corner. Quarterback play. Like, they are depending on Jimmy being good, which he was not last year, and a quarterback who's played one game in like 600 days. And let's face it, from the little we saw in the games in the preseason, which are hard to decipher what matters, what doesn't, pretty big project and a work in progress, which is normal. Like,
you're right, but I think there's a chance Trey Lance looks better in real games than he did in preseason games, when Kyle is willing to really do everything with him that he's willing to do with him.
There would be stretches, but 4 quarters against all these different defensive looks, once they find a weakness, once they can take something away, it would just be an unknown. Trey Lance is an unknown. Just like Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones, like everyone's blowing Mac Jones. I would not be stunned at all if Mac Jones like a couple picks week 1. Like it's hard.
Yeah,
it's
but
very difficult.
It doesn't. He might also do good things.
Yeah, but then he might week 2 throw pick. Like it's just difficult
he's going
week in, week out in the NFL.
Most guys, I mean, everyone does, right?
Unless he has the greatest season ever, and then Kyle quits because he's so mad they forced him.
Would that be an all-time I told you so meeting? Shanahan, Adam Peters, John Lynch.
If Mac Jones wins Rookie of the Year and just is like incredible, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't blame Kyle for feeling mad, especially if his guy struggles a little bit.
There'd be leaks like, Kyle Shanahan was really adamant. He loved Trey Lance. You get like if you were the Niners guys who talked him into Trey Lance over Mac Jones, you'd have to push it.
Yeah. Like rumors were that Belichick too, if Trey slipped at all, was willing to trade it all to get up him. They had him above Mac Jones on the board.
I mean, that'd be an
they
all-time
feel like it's
coach
just found
tantrum.
money. Yeah, he'd be mad. He'd be really mad.
Because maybe he started doubting himself. Like, maybe Kirk Cousins isn't the answer. Maybe these guys
I
are
wouldn't.
onto something.
Would you blame him for doubting himself? Everywhere you turned, beside your own buddy, Chris, everywhere calling him a nut job. You would have to be incredibly. I know he's cocky and rich. The level of secure you'd have to be in your own head.
Chip Kelly security is what I call that, John.
But even him, he started getting his ass kicked forever. But he didn't even.
But I'm just
care.
saying, and here we are 4 years into UCLA, and he just kept doing what he was doing, and Saturday it worked.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Did I say this to you today? I give Chip a lot of credit for that. Like people want his DC fired. People want a lot. Dude, the country, all of the sport has caught up with you, and he just stuck to it.
Yeah,
he's got a good football team.
We'll see if he beats the Dogs in 2 weeks.
Yep, off a bye.
I see you wearing your sissy blue shirt.
It's about sissy blue shirt, John. I'll wear my sissy blue shirt. Where's Eddie O going to be next year?
Probably defensive line coach for Sean Payton.
I was going to say coaching D-line for Joe Brady at the Texans.
Yeah.
What do you think of that one?
That's not a bad one.
This podcast brought to you in part by our friends at DraftKings. DraftKings, promo code HAM. Right now, when you sign up with the code HAM, what you do is you go to DraftKings. When you sign up is when you put the code HAM in. So if you've already signed up on DraftKings, too late for code HAM, but not too late to get in the Haberman and Middlecoff game, get in our league, and then get in the game. If you're having trouble finding it, it's in the description on the YouTube and the podcast.
I can't recommend it enough. I get, so I'm sure you do too, DMs about joining people's leagues. I'm like, guys, I am a DFS player. I change my lineup weekly. And that's what's great about DraftKings, right? Every week you just pick your lineup under the salary cap. So you never get stuck on players. You get to go in our game. There's a ton of other games. Like you're just like, oh, I'll just enter a $5 game. Maybe you're a high roller. Maybe you want to enter a $100 game. You can play games against your buddies. Like each of you play, a game for $20, winner take all. Actually, DraftKings takes a little big, but as they should, they they coordinate the whole thing. Yep. Download the DraftKings app now. Use the code HAM this week 1, guy. Once you get in our game, if you get in our 200-person game, do you add them to our league? Are they in our league that way?
No. When you get in the game, you're not automatically in the league. You've got to join the league. Now, because the game is in the league, it's pretty easy to find the league. So just join
Gotcha.
the league. Yep.
So it's
if you
very
have any
easy.
trouble, just DM one of us and we can get you set up.
Free shot at $1 million top prize this week. Millions of prizes all year long. Enter the code HAM. Free shot at $1 million top prize. Obviously, also getting in our game. Download the code HAM or promo code HAM when you download the app. $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
If you're going to be doing any traveling on the weekend, find out before you travel, is the place you're traveling to let you set a lineup on a Sunday morning. I have been stuck on a plane in the state of Washington before in a desperate situation, John.
My brother, who plays more golf than any farmer in the history of farmers, was in Oregon last week, Bend, Oregon, playing in this 4-day golf tournament. Must be nice. And he tried to join our tour championship, and he sent me the screenshot. Oregon didn't allow him to even just get in the DFS game. So I think it's Oregon and Washington.
Okay, I got to remember that. Next week 2, I'll be in Eugene on Saturday. I got to, get that thing settled.
You got a Ducks game next Saturday?
Yeah.
Who they playing? What's the game?
Oregon Stony Brook.
That's
Ducks will be just beat Ohio State. They'll be 2-0, John. They'll be like the number 8 team in the nation, and your boy's going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, number one player in the country.
Kayvon?
Yeah, let's roll, baby.
God, he looked so good in that game the other day.
Noah Sewell.
Noah Sewell, Justin Flo. There's some sweet players.
I gotta study Sewell a little more. Like, is he like a Fred Warner type in space? Because in the run game, he is just
He's like 250 pounds.
Yeah, he is a force. Sewell jeans, pretty good.
Yep. John, podcast also brought to you by our friends at Sleep Number. SleepNumber.com/ham. 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 What is your sleep number there, Softy?
30. I like it nice and soft, like a pillow top. And hey, what's yours?
I'm a 60.
Hardy.
I'm a 60. I like it. Not quite hard as the floor, but I like a little firm. Yep, I like some firm.
So here's the thing, guy. They had the biggest sale of the year this week. SleepNumber.com/ham. We have had Sleep Number beds for years, and we get great night's sleep. That's why when you listen to us, you hear all this energy. You're like, where'd they get this from? It's like it's not. I have some coffee, guys. Some coffee. No, nothing else. It's just good night's sleep, and you get a good night's sleep. You have energy, and you have the focus to just lock in and dominate.
Yeah. SleepNumber.com/ham. You said it. Biggest sale of the year going on right now, this week. Biggest sale of the year. Save 50% on beds like the new Sleep Number 360 limited edition smart bed. 0% interest for 48 months. Right now only. Just $8.99. The new Queen the new Queen Sleep Number 360 C2 smart bed. You can save $200 there. SleepNumber.com/ham. Go to a Sleep Number store. We always appreciate if you go to SleepNumber.com/ham. First, check everything out. SleepNumber.com/ham.
I told you this. I don't think I mentioned on the last podcast because we were just talking about so much other shit. If I did, correct me. But I told you this before we jumped on Sunday. I was driving home on the freeway, and I look over. It's still the craziest thing I've ever seen on the road. Dude was in a Tesla on the freeway asleep. His head was against the window, passed out. And, I mean, the car, I was probably going 75. His car maybe going it wasn't like hauling. It was 55 or 60.
Yeah.
Cruising, in the slow lane. But it's the most insane thing I've ever seen. And you kind of told me, like, hey, it's easy to get comfortable in things. And you start thinking about it. Like, if you had a Tesla for a couple of years, like it's driving itself.
Right.
His head was against the window, guy. He knocked out, KO'd.
That's incredible. I dream of that.
Would you do that, though?
Right now, no. It sounds crazy. But if you'd given me, 800 drives in a car and I just used it, sat there awake, and it was perfect every time, it's pretty, when you're tired, the sleep is pretty attractive.
Yeah, big time. It's very attractive.
So, making decisions tired, you're just a little skewed. You're like, oh, man, maybe that guy was just like, 15 minutes. I know this stretch of road is all straight. I've been using this car forever. It's performed wonderfully every time. Elon seems like a pretty straight-laced guy. No way there'd be any flaw in the software.
I had an Uber pick me up within the last 3 weeks. Tesla, coolest Uber by far. And most Ubers are terrible, like a little Prius type cars. This Tesla pulls up. It's crazy. Like, you got to press the handle. There's not even a handle. It automatically opens. It's weird. But then I start picking the guy's brain immediately. And I'm like, I got to see this thing in action. Now, again, we're just Walnut Creek streets downtown, so it wasn't the fast we were going 25. I'm like, could you show me? Takes his hands off, presses the button. The screen, like the size of, it's even bigger than the big iPad. And it shows where all the other cars are. It's like a satellite. It was pretty incredible. He's like, watch. We just drove down the street. Hands off.
That's awesome.
It doesn't suck. And his model, I'm like, how much is this thing? It was like $38,000. Obviously, there are higher models, but the car is, because the SUV, when I asked the guy, I think I mentioned this probably like a year ago, when I asked the dude in the parking lot at the gym, the SUVs, they're, a little bigger, but they're not that big. I thought they were like 50, 60 grand. And then I offended the guy. He's like, $100,000. So how much you pay for that? Like 60? He's like, no, man, 100.
I love that conversation in a parking lot. No, man, 100. By the way, you mentioned Noah Sewell, gold-blooded. Says Penei Sewell about to have a rough time on Sunday. I feel for him, man. They moved him to right tackle. Jeff Schwartz says that's hard. So
Yeah, I read something yesterday. He looked really, really bad from what I read.
I
In
just
camp.
saw
Like it
cut-ups of some of the games.
did not
It
go
was
well.
not.
There could be something to not playing for a year, just the fluidity of football. I don't know.
But he doesn't. They seem to think. Everyone seems to think it's all the O-line experts on the internet, who's the guy?
Duke
from the
Mayweather?
Eagles? No. Well, yeah. There's Duke and there's Jeff and there's a couple other people, but Joe Banner. Joe Banner had some takes on it, John.
Guy Joe Banner was a haberdasher turned cap guy. Let's face it. I used to have to take film down to his office and circle the guy. No one needs his fucking film take on offensive linemen.
I said to Schwartz, like, what? I sent him Joe Banner's text. I'm like, who tweet? Like, no, I'm not. I don't need your Since when are you studying footwork? But whatever.
No.
The point is, it does seem like most people think the left to right move is the issue. Yeah, I'm surprised he looked so bad too. I thought he was great in college, but
Did not play last year.
not an idea. So now you got
Back-to-back
Goff
guys. Yeah.
plus
Campbell.
just an easy lineman, an easy target, right? Like what do good coaches do? They find a weak link and they just hammer it. And we know that Goff does not play well against the 49ers. So
Well, D Ford's pitch count, that could be a long day for Sewell on the right side.
you're right on track. Look at this comment from XOR. Let's all pray for D Ford's hamstring this week. All right, next up, John. Tanner Muse got cut. I don't know if you're aware of this. He was the Raiders' third-round pick 2 years ago. Never played a snap for them. Lynn Bowden Jr., remember him, also never played a snap. He was a third-round pick before them. This comes in the draft around the time that Mike Mayock, who we both like, said that he didn't say shooting fish in a barrel, but basically third-round picks are like stealing, I think was his line.
Yeah, he said Steely should be able to get starters in the third round. We had three third-round picks, correct?
Maybe he just meant if we have three, we're going to get one. Maybe that's what he meant.
Well, yeah, and that's what they got. They got Brian Edwards, right?
Because
now,
I mean, he didn't play much last year either.
Lynn Bowden was we think everyone's blowing him. We'll see when the games actually start if he can play. We'll see when Marlon Humphrey's over him. You know, the guy that they say sometimes is better than Jalen Ramsey. If that guy's checking him, listen, Mayock I read in the MMQB. The vernacular out there that he's going to be the fall guy. Like, what are we
tweeted that?
What are we talking about? This is a guy. Let's say Mayock did have more juice than even I'm acknowledging. He would have gone from drafting considerably different than the way he talked. Because, like we have talked about, he didn't just talk about the top 10 players. He was more passionate talking about mid-round guys, and he was good at it. And now he's just picking all the wrong guys. Maybe when you're on the firing line and you actually have to do it, it's much harder. But I'm putting this all on Gruden. And I think the Raiders, the dude that covers them for The Athletic, not Tafer, but they have a guy like under him, wrote a article today.
Is it Reed? Tayshaun?
Yeah, Tayshaun Reed. And it was good. Like, Derek has established himself now as a top 12 quarterback, right? And in Sando's tier article, he used the quote, like, if he became available, there'd be 10 teams lined up. Like, his value is well established. The value of his position, I don't know if you've been paying attention, pretty well established too, right? Like, it's no longer like, can we get a guy for like 18 mil? Like Derek and even Jimmy Garoppolo, like that 22, 23, 24 number got lapped years ago. The going rate for guys now, Dak Prescott, $40 million. So is Derek, now he's claimed, I wouldn't play for anyone else. It's like, does he really live by that if someone else wants him? I don't know. But like the Gruden, to me, it just all goes back to Gruden. So now it's like their team, and we talked about Mayock saying a couple weeks ago that we should be a playoff team. I just don't see how their defense is very good. And I know the one thing they mentioned, I think, in that Sando article was like, is their offensive line going to be as good?
Right, which was the strength of theirs for several years. I
watched Mayock's press conference when he, right a couple weeks ago, right before, and one thing he mentioned, he's like, he didn't say shit, but we took a lot of heat for trading, the two guys, right, Rodney and Gabe Jackson. And he was kind of defending it, like, guys, there's a salary cap here, and we had to finagle some stuff. And I'd go, Mike, I kind of agree with you, but it feels like you guys are always just kind of flying by the seat of your pants. And And I wouldn't necessarily blame you, Mike. I'd blame the head man who's just always doing weird shit. I don't know much about Tanner Muse beside I text 2 scouts. They both thought he sucked. Their beef with him was like, in what world were you taking that guy in the 3rd round? He went unclaimed today.
Well, that's what I was about
How
to say.
often
Let's see where he ends up.
Unclaimed.
Now, he did have an injury last year.
Played this
but
year,
he's not injured now. I mean, he's an uninjured player.
How many 3rd rounders would go unclaimed a year later? Unclaimed?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It just feels very Gruden, very hectic. Everything's just hectic.
The part about it to me that might turn out to be crazy when it's all said and done, especially like, okay, let's say
besides Derek's their only non-hectic thing. I feel
feels like Derek would resign there.
Yeah, but would he sign like a 4-year, $100 million deal and just play for like $25 million?
Well, they're going to have to afford a quarterback, so they'll pay him. He'll get a raise. Can you see him on another team as a free agent?
Could you see Gruden and Mayock? Let's say they go 9-8 this year, or 8-9, somewhere like that, and miss the playoffs. Giving Derek 30, and the crazy thing is, it's not really even his fault, but like giving him $37 million a year.
Well, I think Gruden to me would be the one more likely to just go, now I'm going to walk away and make a change. I'll find somebody else and I'll coach that guy up. But we all know it's a lot harder to find somebody else, right, than you think. Like,
you're saying Gruden would be cool with doing something drastic.
Yes. I think Mike has to know it's really hard. And now, if they win 3 games and they're drafting 5th.
Well, yeah, then the Derek status changes. It's hard to win 3 games with a good quarterback.
I'm just asking, can you see Derek on another team? I mean, the answer, I guess, should be yes, but
I don't think he's saying that just to say it to try to look cool. Like, I do believe him. Like, he is very, I think, loyal. Like, he's very tied to his family. He was all in on Fresno State by the time he was like 10 and like committed to him very early. And I still I follow him on Instagram because he blocked me on Twitter. Like, took a lot of pride in that Oregon game. Like, he was at home, all of his kids were in Bulldog. I just think he takes a lot of pride in things, right? Like what he's a part of. And he takes a lot of pride. Like, the Raiders drafted him. I do think it's easy to say. I do think he believes that when he says it. I do think it's different when it's like, hey, Ron Rivera and the Washington football team, they have an excellent team. Like, he's on the phone. They want to trade a 1st-round pick for you, and they'll extend you. Can you talk to Ron Rivera? Right.
Well,
Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio, like, they want to bring you in.
I would encourage him to explore those things. I'm not, but I also think, to your point, it takes.
What do you do? Like, hey, Ron Rivera, they're going to trade a 1st-round pick. They're all in on you. Gruden doesn't want you anymore.
Right. Again,
it's one thing if like, hey, Joe Judge wants you, like, but like, what if a high level? Sean Payton's on the phone. He wants to trade his 1st-round pick for you,
which I don't think would be out of the realm of possibility next year.
Sean Payton.
Yeah,
but that's what I'm saying. So just pick some names like that. Like, that's who wants you.
Maybe Gruden starts thinking he can get Aaron Rodgers. I think the crazy part about this is, this is failing, obviously, and I don't.
But Derek's not.
No. Well, sorry. When I say this, I mean this Gruden thing is failing to this point.
It's enough.
And I actually think if Gruden had a GM, he'd have a shot. Like, when I watch his team play offense, I go, I think he knows what he's doing.
But that's not part of, like, he likes being the boss.
Well, I understand.
Right? He's done it.
I understand. And that's his weakness. And so how could this get better? Because if Mayock's gone, then what do you do? Did Michael Lombardi become your GM? Who becomes your GM?
Louis Riddick would want it, I'm sure.
Yeah. And maybe Lewis could draft, and maybe Lewis could tell you what to do. But Mayock doesn't draft. Gruden drafts. At the end of the day, yeah. I'm not saying Mayock doesn't make any picks. Just like,
but the coaches have to sign off on it before he can't. A guy he likes that they don't like, he can't draft. That's not allowed in that operation, right? There's no like, so and so's GM was like, we're taking this guy. You guys learn to coach him. I promise you. Like, this is my guy, but he's gonna work. That happens. Yeah. It used to happen more. There's a lot of coaches in charge now, right?
There are a ton of coaches in charge, yeah.
So it gets to the point where this is a massive year for the Raiders. I just think their trajectory of the organization.
Not to mention there's some nebulous investigation going on the side which we don't know exactly how much this affects anything, the future
I was gonna
ownership of the team.
Unpaid debt, and I thought for a second, was that Charles Woodson's or was his rent's due or something?
Oh, they're both good.
Yeah, he maybe rent's due was J.J. Watts. His was like unpaid debt,
What
or
was
I don't
Dennis
know.
Allen's? All in.
Yeah, we were terrible. 2-14.
Remember we went to a Raiders. Remember we had a radio station, Dennis Allen Pep Talk, and so we went and they had like the signs. I think it was All In or something like that. Wasn't that the?
My
signage?
phone went off. My phone went off. I tried
It was
to
your mom. I remember that.
end it, and I hit answer speakerphone. My mom was like, John, Dennis Allen. You can make fun of him all you want, but the head coach of the NFL team staring at you.
Yeah.
My mom saying my name. I'm fucking hitting the phone. It's not turning off.
I remember just sitting there, not even looking at you, just looking straight ahead.
That was embarrassing.
Like isn't that the host of Raiders Post Game Live?
That was not at the time. It wasn't me yet.
Not yet, but eventually. Yeah, I don't know. Speaking of the Raiders in the division, the AFC West, I was thinking about this because I heard Brian Baldinger, or I saw a video of Baldy talk just the bluest eye. But I mean, talk about sissy blue, but not sissy. Baldy's eyes are. I mean, they are gorgeous. Have you noticed? Have you ever met him in person?
Baldinger,
Yeah.
He's come to Eagles training camp
Is
a lot.
he-
He's a Philly guy.
Big presence. I mean, he's a big guy, but
Yeah, he's just an
sneaky
alpha.
good. Yeah, just
Just you just feel him, you know. I just say alpha. That's what he felt like. Alpha.
So he was talking about the Chiefs, and he was talking about their offensive line. You know, far be it, I'm not going through the whole leagues too deep on the O line, but he started talking about their line. And he's like, you got Zeus, I think is what Orlando Brown's nickname is. You got Zeus at left tackle. You got Thuney at left guard. You got Creed Humphrey at center. You got this rookie Trey Smith at right guard, and Lucas Niang, who opted out last year. I'm like, at right tackle. I'm like, holy, what is going on with this Chiefs? Like, let me do it. I know about Thuney and Orlando Brown, but what about the other three guys? So, right, Creed Humphrey's the second-round center, kind of like another Landon Dickerson, not hurt, but second-round center who had played in some huge games at Oklahoma. Trey Smith, the sixth-rounder, is a rookie. You got more intel on him. And then Niang was a third-rounder in 2020 out of TCU who opted out last year. So now he's making his debut at right tackle. And I just started thinking, like, the Chiefs had a weakness, and they still got to the Super Bowl. Now, their weakness became weaker as the season went on, and it really showed itself in the Super Bowl. They tried to sign Trent Williams, couldn't do it, pivoted. They've got this line with three rookies, and the other guy, Thuney, has a 5-year contract. So if this thing works, they've addressed their one weakness and have, like, locked up that weakness for 4 years. I would have, we'll see. I would imagine they'll pay Orlando Brown too. I mean, the quarterback was 38 touchdowns, 6 picks last year, John. And if this line works and this whole thing is put together like this, their line is set for another 4 or 5.
Well, they made a bold move when they made the trade for Zeus, who I actually think his dad, maybe he goes by Zeus too. Zeus, his dad, who played for the Browns, who Pat Hill found, and Belichick. It's like a kind of put him on the map, Coach Hill, as like an undrafted free agent. He was massive, and his kid, he's good, right? Last year Ronnie Stanley, they moved him to left tackle, and the Chiefs pivoted once they didn't get Trent Williams. Peter Schrager has talked about this on. I've heard him on like Colin's show talk about this. Trey Smith, the right guard. Because, like, they're center. Like, you draft a guy in the second round. I say the same thing about Aaron Banks. Like, I draft a second-round offensive lineman. I'm drafting that guy to be my starting offensive lineman week 1. I just am. And you can say, well, John, the history of the league, someone sent me a DM like, Jesse Sapola took him 3 years to become a starter. Like, yeah, guys, you're talking about fucking 1982. If you draft a guy in 2021 in the second round, I think in your draft room, you're like talking about, can this guy be, especially when the position is open, right? You go, yeah, this guy can be the starter. That's how the Chiefs talked, and he became the starter. The right guard, it's pretty crazy story. 3-time All-SEC offensive guard. Google the SEC's defensive tackles. I don't know. They all go in the first round, typically, the good ones. He was back-to-back first team, and 3 years ago, he was a second team. Now, he had some blood clot issues. And we know, because we see sometimes, right, certain things at the combine medical check freak teams out. And that is something that's probably, I'm sure a lot of doctors, who knows, maybe you think that it's an issue that could come back. But when you look, he's played. I would completely understand and be like, God, they got kind of lucky. This guy hadn't played in 2 years. They just took a complete flyer. They didn't take a flyer. He's been their starting right guard at Tennessee for years. Right now, he had the issue and he missed, 2018. But if you then play back-to-back seasons, like that to me could be, again, Traeger, who is, trust me, is very tight with Veach and just texting around. They are smitten on this guy. I got a text like, you should see this motherfucker at practice.
I mean,
also guy, who do you think who does he go up against at practice? I don't know. They got this guy named Chris Jones. Like, he's good. So if his blood clots are not an issue, like when he plays, he dominates. Like Kyle Long. If Kyle Long's not going to play for this team, right? They got Thuney, who they paid huge money, and if this guy's good, like Kyle Long's a backup. I know he's injured right now.
And tackle.
This guy is just like, I just don't. I'd have to do some more research with other teams. Like, how did you guys not like? Why wouldn't you take a flyer on an All SEC offensive lineman in like the fifth
round? Right. I mean, because if he's unless they had another pick in the sixth, he's the second to last pick of the sixth round.
I do wonder if just a large percentage of teams just completely failed him.
Took him off the board completely.
For the medical.
Yeah.
You better be careful with that, though. Because let's just say, if this guy starts 3 years and he never gets a second contract, he's well worth the 6th-round pick.
It's one thing to take a guy off and you don't – who was the linebacker that was it Jalen Smith?
Reuben.
Well, there's Reuben, too.
Yeah.
I don't know if did anyone have Jalen Smith off their board. Maybe it's like, well, okay,
I think a lot of teams did.
Okay, yeah, and I understand you don't want to take him in the second round. In the 6th.
Yeah.
He was not
in my draft room. I think we'd start talking like early 5. Do we trade up to get this guy?
Did they trade up for him?
Well, there are compensatory picks.
So that's what he was.
Round.
He was a comp 6th, John. So he was almost a 7th round. He was the third to last pick of the 6th round, if you count the comps.
He's a guy to keep an eye on because if he's really good for them, like he'll immediately be one of the best late round picks in this draft.
Like, okay, he's off your board. Sam Ehlinger went ahead of him. Is Sam Ehlinger going to be an NFL quarterback?
No. I mean, guy, you start taking the Niners took Jalen Hurd in the 3rd. Like, you could argue flyers. Can we start taking flyers in the 4th? Remember we had this argument when the Niners took Wisnowski, and everyone's like, you can't take a punter in the 4th. Like, a punter in the 4th, or maybe he's a kicker. Is he a kicker?
He's a punter.
No, he kicks off, and he's the punter.
Yeah.
It's like, once we get to the 3rd day in the draft, you can do whatever you want. If you want to give Jason Light shit for Aguayo, taking him too high in the 2nd round, that's fair. But once you get to Saturday morning of the draft where they're going to zoos and you can take whoever you want at any point in time. Because Wisnowski is a good example. And a lot of people did complain about that.
Yep.
They got their starting punter in the 4th round. I'll do that all day long. Like that does matter. But a starting offensive lineman, I'd be fascinated. You need like Albert Breer or Peter King to do, if this guy turns out to be really good, let's just say he's a Pro Bowler year 1. Like, we need an in-depth study on like how many why teams is like everyone going to point like Nick Saban did at Danny Cannell's dad, like it was his fault.
Blame the doctor.
Because in fairness, if you and me are GMs, this is where it is hard. If we're running a front office and Dr. Johnson walks in and he goes, okay, so and so Trey Smith, is that his name?
Mm-hmm. Same as Will Smith's son.
Blood clots. I just think it's going to be a major issue, and at any moment his career could end. And you'd be like, okay, I'm not a dub. Okay, take him off the board. Or it's like, I really like this guy. Are you sure? Are you allowed to do second opinions to your doctor? Like, can we reach out to another doctor? Or are you second opinions only happen when you need the surgery and then you go second opinion? If the doctor's standing there, you can't reach out to another doctor friend. Because there has to be.
I think doctors. On one hand, you'd think doctors would be offended by that. On the other hand, it's like, no, I want this. I believe what I'm giving you as a diagnosis, and it's going to be confirmed when somebody else gives it to you.
A longtime general manager, like if you were just bullshitting with like Ozzie Newsome, a guy who's had like decades worth of drafts. Like, how many times did you and the doctor disagree, and you just disagreed from like, are we sure? And then he turned out to be wrong, and like, how do you shake that? Especially like in a couple years.
Well, the doctor says, no, I'm not sure. You're the one. I'm just telling you it's a 60% chance based on the guessing that I'm doing, right? Because doctors are,
Yeah.
I would imagine there's not a lot of 100% chance it's not going to ever work, right? Doctors probably don't tell GMs that. Why would they back themselves into that corner?
Well, I mean, we're going through it kind of right now with Corona. Nothing is like black and white, right? When you talk to the medical field, they kind of leave their way, like most human beings, right? In the private sector, it's kind of black and white. And the doctor community, that's not really what they do, right? So but the problem is they have so much more knowledge than you. You can call them out, but you don't really know what you're talking about, right? You're like, well, can we just give the guy pills, right? Can we hydrate him? Like, what do you even say back? And the answer's like,
yeah, that might work.
Yeah.
Right? That's probably the answer. It could work.
Now, I wonder how often doctors, it's weird because you would never root for a guy to like go down or whatever, but they do get vindicated, I'm sure, every year with guys.
Yeah.
It's a weird spot to be in. But like, what if you're worried about like, I wonder again, I don't know enough doctors, around the country, how big of a deal it is for them to be the doctor of so-and-so, NFL team.
I've always, I think it's a pretty big deal, but I've always heard there's a lot of liability,
So that's what I'm saying. Would it be worth the stress, especially if you're already making like $1 million?
I've talked to a couple doctors about it who say it's not. They don't think it is, but I don't know.
I wouldn't want. You already have enough stress in your life just working on people, right? Why would you want the GM and the head coach bearing down at you?
Love, you want to work with the highest performance athletes in the world.
I don't know if you've seen, but they do get pretty good seats at the game. They're usually right there.
Just jogging out there, team issue gear.
It doesn't suck. They even get a little more leeway. They can like wear just like a pullover. It's not.
So, yeah. Some of them throw the blazer on over the polo.
Yeah.
And you get
to be no
Dr.
chance
James
I go
Andrews.
blazer.
Everyone knows. More people know Dr. James Andrews than a 2-deep offensive lineman.
1,000%.
Get to work with some high performance athletes. Anyway, a couple other things before we get to a couple other things. Manscaped.com. Go to manscaped.com. Use the promo code HAMJOHN right now at manscaped.com. Use the promo code HAM, get you 20% off and free shipping.
You know what's crazy is we've been with Manscaped for a while. This is their 4th generation, the Lawnmower 4.0.
Wow.
I don't know if we got the 1.0, but we definitely had the 2.0 and we had the 3.0, and now they just sent us the 4.0. It's got LED lighting. It's got ability to go in the water, a little waterproof. USB charger, really, really easy. It's quiet. Like, it's not super loud, which if you want to kind of be low-key when you're doing a little whacking of the lower manly region. I can't recommend it enough. They also send a nose trimmer. It's fantastic. Manscaped.com, longtime partners of the show, and they just make elite. I'm not just saying this. I mean, they truly do, because I've used all their different iterations of their product, male grooming stuff.
I got the
nose hairs.
I used the Weed Whacker today for a nose hair cleanup. Join over 2 million men worldwide who've trusted Manscaped with this exclusive offer just for you, 20% off and free shipping with the code HAM at manscaped.com. Code HAM, 20% off, free shipping. Code HAM at Manscaped. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with manscaped.com. Code HAM. Yeah. A couple other things. Where did I put this? Boop, 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 boop. Oh, real quick, Sean McVay. Did you watch it? I watched a little of Sean McVay's press conference.
I did not.
They asked him about the Bears, and he said, "Hey, man, I've been watching Andy Dalton for a long time, going back to his time at high school or TCU or something, because Jay Gruden was his OC somewhere."
In Cincinnati, he was.
Oh, he said Cincinnati. He was talking about the Bengals. Okay.
So when he got the job and kept McVay, I bet they implemented the offense, and he watched a lot of Andy Dalton.
He's like, Andy. Let me tell you, Peter, Andy's a good quarterback, but he said we'd be naive not to prepare for Justin Fields. I mean, Nagy's giving no indication that he thinks of Fields the way that Shanahan thinks of Trey Lance as a package player, but I think Sean McVay's also thinking, it's kind of a way to say, I know what I'd be doing if I was in their position. I like Andy Dalton, but I would give Justin Fields some offense.
Guy, if in the first half, Justin Fields doesn't have just a handful of plays, 2 or 3, I do think Nagy, it's a little malpractice. Because unlike Trey Lance, this guy runs a 4-4 flat. What if you just ran a quarterback sweep, right? Just on the far hash, and you just run a quarterback sweep. Well, I guess you'd probably do it away from Ramsey. So you'd be on the right hash, and you'd be running left. If you put Allen Robinson over there, you can even – the best part about the offense, you can dictate kind of where people line up. If it's clear, like the first series, he's following Allen Robinson, you put Allen Robinson on the one side, and you run a sweep to the other side, where he just sprints and looks for a hole like he's a running back. Or hell, maybe run the option. I hope, just for my man's sake, that because you could lose that game, but you kind of institute him in, just
You show you're a little open-minded to trying stuff.
you're like, okay, we got a little something here. Because the next week you do have Cincinnati. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't be confident on that, though, are you?
No, it feels like I don't know what's going to happen beyond. It feels like Andy Dalton's getting a game. Like he's getting a game. And I wonder, I don't agree with this, but I would understand it from his perspective if he's like, we promised him he'd be the starter with blah, 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 all this stuff for Andy Dalton. He's going to start a game, and he's going to get to play that whole game. And then after that, we're going to treat him like he's any other player. But now I would not operate that way. You got a bigger organization to worry about, not Andy Dalton's feelings and promises. And I don't know that that's the case. But I do wonder if that's how it's going to play out. Andy Dalton's going to get a game. He's the starting quarterback, and if it's anything shy of an impressive win, now if they win, it kind of extends it a little bit because then you play the Bengals, and if you're thinking of them, because here's the other thing. Actually, now that I think about it, if you are thinking about Andy Dalton's feelings that way, then you're definitely not replacing him for the week they play the Bengals. If you're thinking about his feelings,
yeah, because you like him a lot and you want him to get some vindication back against his old team,
right? But now you're balanced. Now you're just juggling too much stuff. Given the circumstance the organization is in, which is you got to win.
Well, like, why did David Shaw make a quarterback change this week? Just because this other guy's clearly better?
They both played. They lost. The guy that started, Jack West, threw 2 picks. The guy that didn't start, Tanner McKee, was a little better probably, but he's also the
highly
big
touted
time prospect. Yeah.
So are there some now? Both guys are not going to play potentially. But to me, there could be some parallels. Like, you get your ass kicked, like David did. Like, you get your ass kicked, you kind of reevaluate everything. Like, you're constantly reevaluating everything during camp. But until you play a game and look up, did they get shut out in that game? Or they scored a touchdown?
No, they scored a touchdown at the end of the game.
Okay, so it was a kind of pretty hollow touchdown. Like, it was basically a shutout.
It made it 24-7. Right?
Yes. When I flipped it on, they were down like 21-0, and it was like, gee, they couldn't move. It was awful. And at least Twitter was telling me they looked terrible. And you text me they look terrible.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I think a lot of people think the Bears are going to – unlike I don't think a lot of people thought Stanford was going to look that bad. People are projecting the Bears against the Rams like what Stanford looked like just to get, like, lose 28-0. And you, like, get past midfield one time. Well, if that happens, like you say, even if you're all in on Andy Dalton, you have to reevaluate things.
But can you wait 4 quarters to do it? David Shaw played 2 quarterbacks in that game. He didn't wait 4 quarters to change the quarterback.
To me, what if you're down 21-0 at half?
A competition. But yeah, no, you're right. If you're down 21-0 at halftime.
I do think there's some parallels to the teams. I know one guy, both guys got to play, but like you have a highly touted guy that everyone wants to see. The difference is people think you're going to suck. So it's like, what do you have to lose if you're the Bears? I just don't know what you have to lose. More games?
Well, what I said the other day, which is if your offensive line's bad, are you hurting Justin Fields by putting him back there?
Yeah, and that's the pushback. It's like, well, you can't do that against one of the greatest players of all time. Well, most teams' defensive line, or you think the Bengals, even if they're a 3-win team, if you and I just went to warm-ups and watched the Bengals' defensive line, you'd be like, God, look at those pussies. Who couldn't block those guys? Like, those guys are probably huge. I mean, they got some players.
Frosty Rucker still there?
Yeah, I mean, probably you're 18, but they might not be as big as they were. They were legitimately during the Marvin Lewis era and the Paul Gunther era and Zimmer. I mean, you were at a sideline. They were very impressive looking, weren't they? I mean, they didn't have one guy under 6'4" with arms that hung down to his fucking knees.
Yeah.
They had one of the best defensive line units for years. Minimum body type and just legitimate players. So it's just they're not as good anymore. But I don't think you can play that game. Well, this team has this guy has this guy. I think you just got to act in the best. Every team is somewhat of an equal. That's how I look at it. Because I used to think differently, and then coaches, most coaches don't think like that. Like, okay, you're just not going to try against the Bengals? What if you lose that game? What if that's the game Jamar Chase starts catching everything and Joe Burrow looks awesome? We're down at halftime.
Right.
Because we didn't want to, mainly because we put Fields in and he wasn't ready, or who knows? I mean, you can look at it every different way. I just think you have to look at everything equal, and we're just going to play the best guy. That's how I think most scouts look at everything, just very unemotional about it. And coaches get so into the weeds. Albert Breer talked to Nagy this week, and he was just kind of asking him, so, like, can you explain? It was all this intangible stuff, because of course it is. How he gets in the huddle, his presence. And I say this all the time. Once kickoff happens Sunday night, I bet that game, just because the anticipation, like if Dandy goes down and Fields comes in, I'm not missing it. And it's just week one. Is doing like
Stafford,
a 30.
Stafford and the
Is
Rams.
doing like a 30. Yeah, in Chicago though, millions of people are going to be watching it. It's one of the biggest media markets. No one's going to care if they go 3 and out 3 straight times. Like, well, I bet Nagy was right about his intangibles though. Just probably a good guy. Everyone makes fun of Andy when they talk about him being a bad player. Good guy though. Like, we get it. He's a really good guy. I'd say if we just got all 64, there's probably not every team has 3 quarterbacks. Let's pick a number, 80 quarterbacks in the NFL. How many on just the societal checkpoints would probably be considered like high character guys? Wouldn't the number be relatively high?
Pick the whole league. The number would be really
but
high.
But I'm just talking quarterbacks, right? I think out of the 80 in the league, 70 would probably check, just based on other people in society, relatively high, skew high, just the way they act, the way
70
they treat
out of
people.
80 feels like it might be a little high.
When you just factor in like their record, resume of never been in trouble,
but
college
what
graduates.
if you're a douchebag?
Yeah, but I mean,
When people say good guy, they don't mean never arrested. They mean like just a salted quality human being, you know?
True, but like I would have said years ago, like would Cam be one of those guys? And I'd say for sure he is, right? I mean, clear if you got along in New England, he'd be one of those guys, right?
Yes.
Some guys might have some douchey qualities, but like Chase Daniel. Think of the Nick
I think
Foles.
it's as
Think of the
simple as
names.
like, do you like? Is this guy good for your team or bad for your team? You can be bad for a team and not be a quote unquote bad guy, right?
Well, I would say then the majority, all 32 backups would probably check the box, right? Because no coach is messing with a douchey backup.
See, I don't. Well, you wouldn't. Not ideally. There's not enough. There's not enough people that can play NFL quarterback. There's some guys out there that think they should be the starter, and they're not easy to deal with. And I bet those guys, maybe not most.
You think those guys exist anymore? Really though?
I think there's absolutely a few of them that exist. That are just not ideal. Now, maybe they know how to behave. And they keep their jobs and they keep their mouth shut, but
yeah, I mean, I think there's an element though of just.
I mean, people are people, and it's just
most jobs,
people are people.
But like Trubisky's a good example. Like I know people with the Bears liked him; they just thought he wasn't good enough.
I'm not besmirching the reputations of most people. I'm just saying. But
I'm just saying I'm going off the names right now. It's just the names of backup quarterbacks.
Well, I'm not going to start
probably
listing
be
guys.
Starters.
Maybe that one's a douchebag. He might be one of the 8 douchebags. I'm just saying, people are people. You get 50 people or 80 people together, and of those 80, only 30 of them get to do the thing that all 80 of them want to do.
I know,
the
but
other
the quarterback
50 aren't always going to be cool with,
But here's the thing: the quarterback is already a small, tiny subset of the elite humans at their profession. That just to get there, you have to have all these qualities just off the bat, right? To make it to that level.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah, but that's where I go back to. There's just not a lot of, like, your physical talent, your ability is going to get you pretty far at that position because there's not a lot of people that are good enough. So if you can throw the 9 route, John, doesn't matter what kind of person you are, you're going to get a shot because not a lot of guys can hit the 9.
I think you're underselling a little bit. Like, just think about, like, the Niners and the Raiders, for example. Sudfeld, Jimmy, Trey Lance, Derek Carr, Mariota, Peterman.
Yeah.
Like, I just
think, know you get 80 people together, 70 of them are not. I'm not bad. I'm not saying bad. I'm just saying not like all in being team guys. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying bad.
Yeah, and there's always things that like no one would have ever envisioned Deshaun Watson 3 years ago when you were talking about him having an issue with the FBI, right?
Yeah, right. Really, yeah. I'm not talking legal stuff. I'm just saying, like, hey, how is that guy? He's good. He's good. Just that answer. That's what I'm talking about.
Now, one thing I learned in scouting, you got to be careful with biases and subjective interactions.
Meaning?
Right? Well, it's like you interact with a guy. Let's just use this one.
I might have a reason, an axe to grind.
I would say Mariota's a guy that every human that has ever come in contact with Mariota, that like you get an extraordinary positive thing said. Like, oh my God, he's the nicest guy. He was so friendly. What if the one day Mariota was just having a shit day? Somehow I interacted with him. I was like, yeah, he's kind of a dick.
Yeah.
You just never know.
Right. It's incumbent on you to realize he might have been having a bad day.
Yeah. I try to think about that a lot just with humans now.
Yeah.
Could be his bad day. And then I realize, like, get the fuck out of my way.
John, a couple other things. Let's hit some YouTube comments. Big Sleech says Tanner Muse got cut on his birthday. Oh, yeah, we've left out that part of the story where the Raiders wished him happy birthday on Twitter. After he'd been cut or before he'd been cut?
Yeah, I think 30 minutes. They leaked he had been waived, so it wasn't official because I saw someone tweeted out that what they could be doing is remember Rodney Hudson? Rodney Hudson has been cut, but really they leaked it like 5 hours before they had to officially waive him and ended up trading him. And didn't you tell me that you heard Cliff like, damn, I didn't even know he was available. And then they traded for him.
Basically, yeah.
So now Rodney Hudson and Tanner Muse aren't exactly on the same level. He not only got cut, no one claimed him. There's a chance, like, I don't know if Gruden and Mayock were telling the social media director their plans. So that guy probably just had it in the hopper, right, at noon.
Well, my question is, why can't you still wish Tanner Muse a happy birthday? That's what I would say. Wish him a happy birthday anyway. Happy birthday and best of luck with your future endeavors. That's what the tweet should have said.
What would you guess Tanner Muse, the Raiders paid him for never playing in a game? Because it's a third-round pick. You get some money.
Yeah, I don't know. $970,000.
Yeah, you got $830.
Pretty good.
I don't think we give, like, obviously being a first round, but being a second or third round pick is not nothing.
Not nothing.
Right, like being a third round pick, you get $830,000 signing bonus.
Still, if someone tells you want to be a third rounder this year or first rounder next year, you still might go back to school though.
For sure, but then you start making you make $800,000 every year, so you get the $800 signing bonus, and then you just make $800,000 every year. It's not. I think we view it as like they get nothing. I know sometimes I do subconscious, like I don't even think about them. But remember Derek when he got now second round picks, maybe we view it a little higher. Derek got like $2 million as the 37th pick. I remember.
Flown by that.
Yeah.
As it relates to DraftKings, Sam says, I'm a student in Washington, but I live in California, so I'm going to play while I can. Daniel said, use VPN. Try the old ExpressVPN ham promo code. See if that one still works.
You ever use that?
Yeah. Runaway Turtle says Reuben Foster worked out for the Jags. Not sure if he got signed.
Of course
Did
he
he
would
really?
like him. He worked out for the Jets too.
What's he coming off? ACL?
I mean, remember didn't his foot shatter
Oh,
or
was it a
something
foot?
in the camp? I don't think he's played in a couple years.
ACL in 19, 2020 on IR. Only 27 years old. Top 10 linebacker, PFF 2017. Thank you for that note. Domingo says, oh, shit. Domingo, I just lost your. Domingo.
It's a good name, Domingo.
Yeah, Domingo is a good name. Here we go. Domingo says, is it kind of dangerous to advertise Tito's vodka and Manscaped? Maybe disclaimer, wise not to drink the Tito's before using the Manscaped?
I mean, when
Is that
do you
your
think most
favorite
people
activity?
when do most people do their trimming? Probably morning before shower.
I don't know. Morning feels like you need some time. What do you think? Maybe like a Friday afternoon?
Yeah, I mean,
Friday afternoon, shower, and then, get ready for the weekend? I don't know. It's a good question.
I don't know.
Is there any data on this?
I have to think about. I've probably done my trimming at all different times. No rhyme or reason to my trimming.
Q Crew says, who's your guys' favorite play-by-play guy in the NFL? Who do you like?
I think most of them stink. No, actually, the play-by-play guys
Most
are
of them are
fine.
pretty good.
Most of the analysts are terrible, but favorite? I mean, probably Al. I just sucker for Al.
Yeah, Al is. I actually think most like I enjoy Jim. I enjoy Iron Eagle a lot.
Kevin Burkhardt's good.
Burkhart has Burkhart really enjoyable. mean,
I like Joe Buck.
I like Buck. Al might just be just for nostalgia, and he's still going strong.
Yeah.
That rascal Al.
I'd say most national play-by-play guys, for me, I mean, in most of the major sports are fine. Yeah, I mean, there are some super famous guys that aren't that's their true job. They just get to do it. Yeah, they can be hit or miss, but most of the big guys are. Who did? Because like Herbie didn't do it with Fowler, that he did it with Reese.
Mm-hmm. Because Fowler's doing U.S. Open tennis.
Oh, did Naomi quit
She lost, and then
early?
yeah, threw a racket a couple of times. Broke down in the press conference. Said she might be taking a break. I think might have been part of that.
Was she the number one seed?
Was she the number one seed? I don't know. I don't think
Maybe
so.
not.
She hadn't been playing well.
Gotcha. She cracked.
Josh said the Friday evening before the bars trim is clutch.
Done that. Yeah.
Noah said, I wish us Seahawks fans had a podcast half as good as this one. Well, you're welcome here.
Yeah.
Just make this one your podcast.
Yeah, I mean, if you could find a bunch of people around Seattle to give us probably $500,000, we'll do another one.
Yeah, that's right. The Ham Network, where it's just us doing every team.
Yeah.
Locked on Ham. It's just Guy and John again.
Yeah,
John, I got to tell you, Missouri football.
If you can facilitate the sales guy to then set up the deal, we'll put the effort in.
Yeah. It's like, oh my God, what do you guys do? We just set it up. We start at 8. We do just 30-minute podcast, 30-minute increments, a 28-minute podcast with 2-minute pre-breaks. That's how we do it. We're just like the military. We've got it set up.
I'm telling you, Mississippi State baseball, this is what they got to do.
John, when I see Fulham FC, here's what I think. Can you believe that Max Verstappen, F1 Ham Pod, that Max Verstappen and Lando Norris finished 1-2 yesterday at the Turkish Grand Prix?
One thing I've noticed, there aren't a lot of major like individual teams like what we do. Now, granted, we still talk about other stuff too, but like the Bay Area guys kind of are. Obviously, we're here. This is where we've done doing the radio show, the Niner stuff. Still give the Raiders love.
And enough other stuff. We want to appeal to other people too.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk whatever. I do think the Cowboys have that, and I do think the SEC has that. And I bet if we really dove into the weeds, there's probably something like Ohio State wise that has something like that.
I think
because if you and I lived in the Midwest, it would be insane to not go all in Ohio State football. Because I would.
Isn't there's been a website going for years, like Tex Ags, I think is one that's been going for a while, and then there's the Longhorns one, Chip Brown. There's like a long running. Those are a lot of created
a business out of
turned
it,
into right? Turned into websites, and now I'm sure they have podcasts.
You could probably do like absolutely. If you were the number one Ohio State and you just went to us for Ohio State news, and like what would you guess, 50,000 listens an episode?
Well, what is 11 Warriors? That's their website. I'm sure it's massive.
Yeah,
that's
they got to crush
State
it.
Site.
How many people do you think listen to Paul Feinbaum every day? Now he encompasses an entire conference.
Right.
Probably pretty high.
Yeah, and he's been going for how long? I mean, forever.
I mean, a long time.
Yeah.
You just got to go where the people are passionate, and we just like our passionate people.
Ham. Locked on Ham presents the Seahawks.
Georgia Tech football breakdown.
Would be great. Just
joined by Coach Collins.
We just like wearing Seahawks hats. Then we just switch out gear, and then we're wearing Chiefs stuff, and then we switch out gear, and we're wearing like Alabama. How about just that would be the move? Is we just do Southern football. It's like Tennessee. You know, John, I was going down to the Safeway over there here in California today, just thinking about Tennessee. Oh, you got your Bama hat. Do you think maybe they would embrace us?
Well, it's like, does Paul Feinbaum do an SEC show, or does he do like 90% Bama and then talks a little about like Ed Ogeron and Kirby Smart? Yeah.
Big weekend for the West Coast, John. We got 4 Pac-12 games on Fox or ABC. 3 Pac-12 games on Fox. Oregon, Ohio State this week. Michigan, Washington's on ABC. Colorado A&M is on Fox, and Stanford USC is on Fox. So no more whining about we don't get the time slots.
What's the second best game if Oregon Ohio State's the best game of that group? Stanford SC?
I mean, SC's an 18-point favorite. I know Washington looked really bad, but
what's Oregon?
Oregon is a 14-point underdog.
Jesus.
I think Thibodeau's going to play, though.
That's a pretty big line.
It's
What's Michigan, Washington? You say Michigan, Washington was like 5?
Yeah, 6, 5 or 6.
That feels a little low to me. No, I get it. Harbaugh. Skinny Harbaugh.
Skinny Harbaugh, it's...
What's Colorado A&M, like 25?
17.
Do you know that kid threw 3 picks and they won like 45-10? Threw 3 interceptions.
Haynes King is his name.
3 interceptions.
They
and they were up 40 at one point in time. I mean, not a good team.
Like Kent State, I think, might have been.
Yeah. 3 picks. And Jimbo's the head coach, who's like a $150 million man, is the OC. So probably a little tense around there Sunday, Monday.
See, I think they just named the quarterback like a week
ago.
Yeah,
he's a younger player. I mean, their big thing, like in following just some SEC shit and just like recruiting stuff on Twitter, people were kind of like, they're not quite Bama, but the recruiting he's done the last 2 years, if their quarterback play is good, they are stacked. Like they got dudes. Yeah. They're basically LSU, but with a good coach. I think is the way people talk. And even you went to A&M when Fresno State played them in like 07. They've always had like blue chip guys.
Well, they had
Bennett.
What was his name?
They had Martellus Bennett.
They had the running back who was huge. He looked like
start with a G, I think Gillespie or something. He was good.
Well, they had Mike Gillespie, but they had another guy.
Oh, they had Lane. Lane was the running back, right?
Javorsky Lane.
Yeah.
Yep, Javorsky Lane. I was telling somebody the other night who didn't quite understand, because I was like, you go to the stadium and they start swaying, and the whole stadium moves. Like the stadium sways. It's really unsettling. And they were like, well, how do they know to do that? I'm like, because they practice all their chants the night before. At yell practice on a Friday night, you get like 40% capacity. I went. The place was packed. Like one whole half of the stadium. They're all there. It's almost midnight on a Friday. It's called yell practice. All the cheerleaders are there, and they just go through the list. And they're like, all right, next up, John, you suck. And it's like, John, you suck. And then they do whatever the hell they do. And they practice all their chants. I've never heard of anything like it. They do it. I went. It was crazy. I've never seen anything like it.
You're telling me they have 40% capacity day before
I don't know what
at
the
night?
number is. I'm just going off my memory.
But it's a lot
like
of
11.
but a lot of people are there.
It was like one
stadium.
half of the stadium, several sections full. We just came from a bar, me and Ryan Reggiani. We're like, we got to go to yell practice tonight.
And it's dark outside. Like it's night.
Yeah, you just go into the stadium and they practice.
Yeah, that was Marlon Moore put the ball over the pylon, right? Knocked out, touchback. The dogs lose. I think that was Ryan Matthews'
penalty.
First game as a Bulldog, and was pretty good. But he got hurt.
Yeah, that was the first time I ever saw Jim McElwain, get well soon, coach, Mac at Central Michigan now.
They play LSU in 2 weeks.
Ooh, I hope he's back for that. Maybe he can put up some points.
Yeah.
Ooh, him and Tim Skipper. Go get it done.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I ever saw an offensive coordinator run the play where he split 3 offensive linemen out to the hash marks and then ran a bubble screen. So, it was 3 O-linemen plus a running back behind him. I guess not a bubble screen. Quarterback takes, turns, throws it out there, and then he's got to run behind the offensive lineman. I think I got 2 yards.
How sweet did the formation
O-lineman in space,
That was a big year for Jim. That was a big year for Jim McElwain because Tom Brandstater had a big-time year, and then he got hired, I don't know, to work for this guy named Nick Saban, and 2 years later he was a national champion.
Yep, it was. All right, on that note, hey, it's Thursday, there's games. So Thursday we'll tell you what our lock of the week is as well as our dud of the week. And go get in the DraftKings game. There will be a football game on Thursday night. So we'll be live before that football game in the afternoon. And then if something happens in that game, maybe we'll do some more content. And then we're off and rolling, man. It's here.
Thank you, Jesus.
Better factory, Alabama or Ford?
Did you see Ford just hired Tesla's their car maker? So I got Ford on the comeback trail.
This is like when they
It'd be
tried
like
to win.
It'd be
at
like
Le
the
Mans.
equivalent if like if LSU this fires Ed and hires Dabo, it'd be like LSU's on the comeback trail. That's what
Right.
Ford hiring a guy from Tesla.
Right. The Americans, we land on the moon, and then Russia hires our head NASA guy.
Yeah, I would give the nod right now to Alabama over Ford.
I would too.
Because really, beside the F-150, and just their truck, what do they bring to the table?
I mean, the Mustang, but if you're into that.
Feels like it's had its run.
Yeah, in the 60s.
Mike Ewing drove a Ford Taurus.
Taurus, they had
Remember
a
that thing?
government contract for years. Chris Schickenance had a Taurus too, blacked out.
Yeah. That is key. You get a sedan and then you get a government deal. So you just flip a ton of them.
Rocky Mountain says F-150 Lightning looks sweet.
I've been in one. They are fast.
Billy Whalen had one.
Yeah.
I think it was called maybe it was called the Lightning.
Marcus Wilson had the Bumblebee. Remember that thing?
That was that like a yellow Lightning basically?
Yeah, I think that was a Dodge, if I remember correctly.
Oh.
The Bumblebee might not have been a Ford,
Gotcha.
but I think the Lightning was definitely the F-150.
Yeah.
Remember what Nicolas Cage in not Fast and the Furious, but Gone in 60 Seconds?
Is that what he
The
had?
Shelby Mustang.
They've got like a kind of a SUV-ish looking electric Mustang now. Have you seen that one?
I have not.
It kind of looks
I guess
like the SUV Tesla.
The Bronco's
The
back.
Y. I haven't seen it on the road yet. Have you?
I have not seen it on the road, but it's back on the internet, which basically might as well be the road. I felt like it was back, but I haven't seen anyone driving it. That had a good run. I'd say the Ford Bronco. Did it peak with OJ? It's like late 80s model was sweet and early 90s. Like what OJ was driving was like one of the badass cars of the fleet in like 94. Like just that two-door Ford Bronco was just like,
yeah.
was kind of the equivalent of like probably what, like, I don't even know. I mean, it wasn't as high end as like the Escalade or something, but it was just a lot of people drove that thing. I knew a lot of people with Ford Broncos as a kid.
Somebody had anyway, we just start naming people. Maybe it wasn't the Lightning maybe it was, what was the other Ford pickup?
No, I think he had a Lightning. We definitely had a Lightning in high school.
Because he's saying the truck's not out yet. So was it
The
called
Lightning.
something else?
The Bumblebee?
It wasn't the Bumblebee.
Bumblebee tuna? Okay, I'm starving. I haven't eaten
Speaking of
anything.
Bumblebee tuna. Later. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging.
Later.